Sometimes there are reasons to stay out of the light. For example, the curious warping of reality in the hills around Bradford, where a trick of light concealing an intersection of dimensions floats by largely undetected. Through that bending light was the centre of machinery and reconfigurement transnational hotel, where a series of important meetings were taking place in the lead up to one very important meeting, where the existential status of one Richard Nixon would be confirmed one way or another. The Supreme Spirit Council was finally making their decision. By the end of the day, Nixon would either be leading his own battalion in the war, or he would be imprisoned in a work camp until everything blew up. Either way, no longer would he dwell in the netherworld. He waited at the hotel bar, having his first dry martini since the last hearing earlier this century. There were no lawyers involved, no technicalities or loopholes. The 37th US President wouldn't even really plead his case, a brief statement being all that was required or permitted from him. He wasn't thinking about what he would say. He was thinking about another dry martini, though he dismissed the idea fairly quickly. Nixon then recalled how much he had hated Cassius Clay, trying to fully savour the only drink he'd have. In the resplendent and grand foyer, 3 astronauts, 2 American and 1 Russian, all deceased, all departed, chatted amongst each other, reminiscing and comparing. Really? I died in Minnesota. Ah, so you'll know Kortskov, uranium chip. I glide along stellar frequencies these days. Such a comfortable way to travel. All 3 had clocked up many hours in space between them while on Earth, so to speak. They were all going to the annual gathering of space geeks and moon freaks. Unfortunately for all concerned, these kinds of gatherings were often infiltrated by the dreaded flat earther, whose lame, almost biblical wailings were said to be unleashed on some poor unsuspecting science nut. Although the space believers had been presented with new definitions of space upon passing over, they still liked to get together and rejoice in the glory and wonder of the cosmos. Excuse me, came the nasally whine from behind the large decorative plant. How do you account for the $52 million being awarded to NASA on a daily basis? How do you excuse that? They had been accosted. Nasha? I'm a cosmonaut. Same lie. The activist then tried to throw the contents of a paper cup over Clyde Kembler, one of the departed American astronauts. What the hell? Teddy Maybank, the other astronaut, grabbed the fly earther, who was leaping around making braying noises. What are you doing, son? He pushed him up against the decorative tree from where he had sprung. Thankfully, it was beaten raw eggs in the cup rather than some kind of space acid, and no one was allergic. Yuri Zhirkov, the cosmonaut, inspected him as Maybank detained. I've seen you before, haven't I? Zhirkov had seen him before, at the unveiling of a plaque. He had disrupted that also. I don't know. Maybe you were faking a planetary landing. He remained with an infantile yelp, a needling, impish gurn. Still with this? Billy? Really, boy? Teddy shook him, disbelieving and imploringly. Let me talk now. Clyde joined the interrogation committee. Go see if anyone else has arrived yet. I have a couple of questions for our activist here. Grab some drinks from the bar or something, he instructed. Maybank relinquished his grip on the flat earther and looked at the cosmonaut, figuring who cares. Let Kemba deal with this guy if he wants to. It was margarita time. He turned around to say that this shit's got to stop, pointing in the direction of the flat earther, who cut a fairly pathetic figure in the grand foyer. Some kind of nut. Nixon found that he couldn't satiate the intense dislike for Cassius Clay and threw caution to the wind, figuring if they were going to shut him away, why not have another? He deserved it after all. Outside of the hotel lies another warped piece of space-time, and a walk in the gardens leads to downtown Saigon, or at least this world's imagining of downtown Saigon. There John Glenn, one of the most famous astronauts to ever walk in space, was drinking cocktails with his old friend God, who despite the fuzzy, uncouth exterior, truly was the omnipotent one. God cherished these rare interdimensional catch-ups with one of the creatures he liked more than most in this or any other universe. Not that he would ever let him know, until the great passing over, the real goodbye. That was hundreds, if not thousands of Earth years away, when the light would blind and evaporate it all. Well, what about the flag, son? Film crews, the moon is a shadow. Son, could you calm down for one moment? Clive Kember was sitting with the Fly Earther at a table in the hotel's reception. The name of the Fly Earther was Waldrick. Over the next 6 minutes, Kember would go on to surmise that Waldrick only spouted flat Earth nonsense to seem clever, as well as a sense of belonging. John Glenn tentatively discussed the moon landings with God, who of course knew the truth, but could not say anything lest he appear to be taking sides. You can't take sides if you have supposedly created the sides, John. Why did you say supposedly? God then went on to explain that he had a number of litigation issues hanging over him that could one day feasibly reach the Supreme Spirit Council. For this to happen, he could be forced to reveal secrets that could turn all realities in on themselves. Tired of questions, God bade goodbye to his old friend and left the cafe, sauntering back to his own realm. Glenn was staying here for the Nixon verdict. He left what he hoped would be enough of this particular currency and made his way back towards the hotel gardens. Maybank and Jerkoff struggled to get served at the busy hotel bar. Maybank is furious and then spots Nixon leaving. Isn't that? He mumbles before realizing he is far more interested in a drink than the increasingly haggard ex-president. Waldrick the Fly Earther is next to spot him, leaping up from his chair at the table in the reception. You! John Glenn strode majestically into the reception area, just as the commotion was starting. It's your fault there's so many satellites! To a collective gasp, Waldrick took down Nixon with a perfect rugby tackle, right in the foyer. Maybank and Jerkov arrive on the scene, trying to break up the scuffle, as does John Glenn. God returned to the Saigon Cafe in search of a gold lighter that he believes he left there. One of the members of the Supreme Spirit Council was standing near the bar area, talking to the server girl. God turned his gaze towards the trick of light in the distance that concealed the somewhat supernatural Praline, quickly realizing that the light was growing and growing, brighter and brighter still. Soon the light is blinding and evaporation ensues. The people below in Bradford and the wider world never had a clue any of this went on, and there exists not a trace or a palimpsest of this curious extra reality. There are reasons to stay out of the light.